And welcome everybody. We're now recording. This is Wednesday, um, May 15th, if we can believe it. And final installment for the business of wine. And remember, Monday is no live class. Anybody who wants to set up a call with me over the next few days should be fine. I'm a little packed, but on Monday, I'm heading to Yamanashi Prefecture to go learn about a wine grape called Koshu, which is made into a dry white wine, and then also Muscat Bailey A, which is a designation for a red variety of Muscat. So that's going to be exciting, and I get to take my son along. Woohoo! So, all right. So as usual, just starting with any questions or comments. Did you guys get a chance to view Monday's program?
Yeah, I actually just finished it like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, good. What did you think?
It's interesting. Actually, the woman spinning for me did switch halfway through, which was really weird.
Yeah, what's really fascinating when you've got a room full of 100 people, and they think they're all seeing the same thing, and then you ask people to start raising their hand, and it's like no, and you see people trying to convince the person next to them that no, you're wrong, it's going the other way, and then all of a sudden people start going, oh, she switched.
Right.
And this is so much of what wine is, the perception of wine, and trying to convince other people. And there are so many rich aspects to this realm of kind of, if you will, investigation and understanding that there is no such thing as objectivity when it comes to perception. And at a very high philosophical level, it can be argued nothing is objective other than the object itself. Any way to describe it, to quantify it, doesn't matter if it's math or whatever it is, it's subject to language, it's subject to agreements around different systems. It's subject to individual perception, and in the realm of neural marketing and understanding consumer behaviors at a neural level, how people's brains work, how many products they want to select from, but what they want that narrowed down to. The arguments that we face day in and day out on wine judging panels, or people arguing, oh no, descriptions are much better than points, etc., etc. And it's all really just kind of crazy, and it prevents us from actually finding solutions to chronic problems of the industry, and also prevents us from a much higher level of hospitality in the wine industry. And then as millennials come on, we cling to that our perception, our way of thinking about things is what we ought to teach other people, whether they see the same thing. So you can imagine, you're sitting in a room full of people that are predominantly seeing the lady spinning one way, and your brain's processing it differently. And there's two directions people can go with that. What's wrong with me, or what's wrong with them? And if you're part of the minority, you're reticent to speak up because we don't acknowledge, we don't understand these phenomenon, and therefore we just continue going off the direction we go, and repeating the same mistakes, and sort of forcing the same issues, if you will. Anything other than the spinning lady stick out?
Well, yeah, I know this is our last recorded session. I kind of was hoping that, I don't know if you had an agenda for today, but I was hoping that we could kind of bring a lot of this full circle, because I just looking over my essay questions, but this is also, I guess, really pertinent to my own situation of having a small brand, and probably for Daniel as well. A lot of things stuck out at me. There are a lot of questions just about quantifying success, both in the short term and the long term. And I feel like I would just be really interested to talk about that for a little bit, because I feel like, especially when you're looking at a business in the short term, quantifying your success is not going to be your profit. So I would just be kind of curious, because I feel like there are probably a lot of ways to quantify success that aren't jumping out at me, but I was hoping we could just talk a little bit about, how do you measure whether or not you're actually doing a good job in this business? Is it like, how many people you've signed up for your wine club? Is it how many followers you have on Instagram? Is it how many times you got mentioned in Wine Spectator? Is it breaking even? Like, what is it?
And that's a great unanswerable question that hopefully I can provide some structure for determining. Almost any time you look at a business plan template, you'll see the vision, the mission, and the goals. If you're like me, you tend to ignore things like that over time, or I'll get to that later. But at the end of the day, it's really, the crux of the whole thing. And then in establishing what the end game is, how you are, where are you in your plan? Where are you in the success of your life? And I'm going through it right now with my company. We're completely reorganizing my company, and what are we doing, and when are we doing it? And I'm not, I'm 67 years old, and so my vision and my goals are changing very dramatically over time, right? So one of the programs that I participated in about structuring life and businesses and achieving day-to-day happiness, all right, gave me a great deal of clarity specifically to what you're saying, Rachel. And I also want to temper this, not temper this, but I also want to say that over the next few weeks, for the rest of your life, see if you can start to look at products, like what's the game they're playing? How are they measuring success? Right. What do you do when fires or frost or torrential rains or whatever disrupt the plans? And what's the cost of those kind of things, that are not only going on in California, but in Portugal and Australia and all around the world. So it was kind of put to me this way. Let's pretend we're going on a trip, the three of us. And we decided, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's all get in the car and we'll head off. Somewhere along the trip, somebody's going to say, well, where the hell are we going? And I might say, we're going to LA. And is that where you wanted to go? Was there a stated destination? And if there wasn't, while you're on the trip, there was an agreement we wanted to go on a trip, but we didn't do the visioning. We didn't create a mission. We didn't set any goals to go on the trip. So whether you're a large winery or or just going to take what you were doing in the garage and to do it in a formal place. The process that I was taught is the first thing that you do is determine what is the destination, and that becomes the mission. Where are you going? What do you intend to accomplish? And whether it's just for yourself, whether it's for you and a family member, for partners, for investors, or whatever, making sure that everybody knows what the goal is. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, what the mission is. Okay. And so in Daniel's case, what I'm getting, your mission is to get moved. That's one of the things that you want to accomplish. And to plant the parts of the vineyard that are not planted, and to start a brand, and so forth. So you've got elements of your mission, but at the end of the day, it's to have a wine brand, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And
hopefully find a place to sell those grapes that are now growing.
Right. Now here then becomes the problem that there might be multiple things to accomplish. And that's okay, but you've got to be really careful not to overload it with things, so that you've got a clear sense of what the destination is.
Right.
And it might be a separate plan to sell your grapes.
Right.
Or you could combine it, say, all right, our mission is to have the brand, have the wines, have a market for our grapes, and then you stick a marker and create a line in the sand by when. So when are you going to accomplish that by? So does that make sense on the mission end of it?
Yeah, I would actually, if you don't mind, I want to chime in on Rachel's question too, because
sure.
This is kind of what I'm going to do. And so over the past 20 years, my involvement has been in selling quality system certifications. And just to keep that real short, something that every one of these companies needs to do every year is they need to have a management review meeting. And that's where you look at everything that you've done the past year. You're setting your goals and metrics for the upcoming year. And by the way, the frequency can change. It doesn't have to be every year. You could do this. You could do this quarterly, or you could do this biannually if you wanted, Rachel. But basically, you figure out what all your metrics are, like customer satisfaction. Are your customer satisfaction surveys high or low? Have you been late in delivering your shipments to any of your larger customers? So you have all these things that you measure, and you bring it to the table every year, and you just have a review. And that's a great opportunity. You were talking about, and also the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis of that business plan, it's a great time to kind of review that whole business plan and that SWOT analysis every year in your annual review. So you can kind of track where you are and where you want to be, and just look at the measurable items, the KPIs as we call it. But that's really all you can do. And if you do that, and you have visibility on all these things, then you'll have a much better idea of where you're heading. That's what I plan on doing.
Right.
I'm just looking forward to having some quality time to really sit down with my partner. Because this is my class. I want to take full credit for doing all the work. But I do want to interview my wife a little bit. She's living in one house and I'm living in the other. But at some point within a week or so, we're going to come together and say, look, what do we really want to do with this vineyard over the next year and the following year, and set like a 5-year and a 10-year goal.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I guess the first. I mean, both of you are saying the same thing, that your first, even if you're making wine in your garage or you're starting a brand with the intention of selling it to Gallo, like you have to ask, like, what's your goal? Is it to make enough money to live on, or is it to sell the brand? Is it to, I don't know, to not make money, just to like have personal enjoyment? But yeah, that makes sense.
But let me go back to my metaphorical process, because what typically happens to me and a lot of people is you start jumping to success metrics. Then you jump over to what you want partners or family or whatever to do, and then it keeps spiraling to what's my action plan. Yeah. And so given that, the course that I was in was a communications course into then how to create that action plan, in this case a business plan. So in terms of your mission, what is it that you intend to accomplish physically in the world that could be said, I'm here?
Was that a question?
For you, Rachel.
Wait, sorry, repeat the question.
So let me go back to my explanation. Let's say our mission is to go to Disney World.
Right.
Right, and we know where that is. It's in LA, and we've got agreement that we're going to go to Disney World. So that's the mission, right? We'll know we've accomplished the mission when we're at Disney World.
Right.
So what's the mission? And it doesn't have to be correct now. You can work on this, but do you have an articulate and clear mission of what you intend to accomplish?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that always changes, right?
Yes.
I mean, I definitely, for me, just from like my business point of view, like I kind of, I'm not sold on continuing to make wine. So at this point, my very humble goal would just be to sell enough to break even, to recoup my original investment.
Okay. So this is jumping ahead, and here's the hard part. We may agree to go to Disney World, but if all of a sudden we get halfway there and we need to change, how do we handle that and so forth?
Right.
So part of the process is whether it's right or wrong, whether it's actually what's going to happen or not in this stage, what would you say your mission is without qualifying it and so forth? So would it be actually having the brand or not?
I don't know. I mean, the first stop is like just breaking even and then reevaluating.
Well, again, breaking even on what?
On what I've already produced.
Okay, so let's say then the goal is then around what you've already produced and doing something with that.
Right.
And so we could say we're going to go on a trip around the country, but our first mission is to get to Disney World.
Right.
And then, and we're going to put in for contingencies around that also. So if you were to articulate your mission, what's the mission?
I don't know what I just said. No.
Well,
breaking even on what I've already produced.
No, breaking even's a goal.
Okay.
So so you want to sell wine and you want to establish your brand, or
right.
Something like that.
Right.
And so you've got current inventories that you want to sell.
Correct.
And you'll know you've accomplished your goal when that inventory's gone.
Right.
And then you've got other things to consider from there, but that's your immediate mission.
Yes.
Okay, good. So do you see how different that is than jumping immediately to kind of your goals and what you need to do, and if you're going to break even
right.
and so on. The first
well, it's kind of like everybody asks, like, what do you want to do when you're a master of wine? I'm like, I just want to pass the test first.
Yeah. So that's your mission, is to pass the test.
Right.
Yeah. So pass the exam. And actually, and you and I'm going to talk about then the structure for that as well in the context of what we're talking about. And then we'll kind of see how that goes. And then for you, Daniel, I want you to think about, you've got your brand, your wines are being produced, and you've attained a market for your grapes. Does that sound like your mission?
Yes.
Okay, great. And how will you know you're there? You've got your wines, you've got your brand, and you've got a market for your grapes.
Yes.
All right. So that's the mission statement, is what you intend to accomplish. And so by when would you like to have that done? And we may go back and revise that. So let's go back to you, Daniel. By when do you want to have the brand, the wines in the market for the grapes?
We definitely want to have everything branded this year, and I have no choice. I've got to go out and sell hopefully about 75.
Hang on.
Yes.
So again, what's happening? This is how it all starts cycling, kind of obfuscating the mission.
Right.
Just pick a time that you think is relatively realistic. We're going to go back and fine tune something. Do you want to have your wines in the bottle, ready to sell, and the market for your grapes in a year, in 2 years?
Yes, 1 year.
In 1 year. So then you would put that in your mission statement. Our mission is to accomplish having the brand, having the product, having it ready to sell by May 15th, 2020.
Yeah.
All right. And I mean, if we were going to Disney World, there's a lot of things we're going to have to do, and a lot of stuff that we've got to get agreements on and so forth. But you know, you've really got to set an idea, when are we going to do this? Because there are other things that have to happen.
Right.
And then in Rachel, in terms of, do you want to use the passing the master of wine, or do you want to use your wine example?
I mean the wine example, because I guess what I'm thinking about, like, specifically is, like, you know, people always want to quantify for business, want to quantify your success in terms of how much money you're making, right? But even like for Daniel, if he's selling fruit with all the costs he has to put in with putting in new vines and then maintenance and other unforeseen problems that were going to come up with his irrigation and whatever, you know, he might not be profitable for a really long time. So I guess what I'm curious about is, if your end goal is to say, I want to turn X number of dollars profit per year, on the road to that goal, what are the signs that you're being successful? We want
to figure out where we're going first.
Right. So
then
say
we're going to go back.
I want to make $200,000 a year in profit on my brand.
So that's not a mission, that's a goal.
Okay.
A mission is a tangible, either physical place to be, a product to have, something you can hold or state. I've accomplished the mission. And so for you, the mission is to have the wines sold.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And then there's other things to reevaluate, and we're going to get to then how you're going to, what metrics you're going to use to gauge the success. Okay. So, and again, this is the hard part. Our brains are wired to want to jump to this, what about this and that, so that if we never said we're going to Disney World, again, we all get in the car and we have no idea where we're going or why, or if there's any agreement. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying more like, if I said my end goal is to make X number of dollars, then like the mission is more like, I know for that to happen, I would have to have like 50 placements.
Well, we're going to get there. We're just doing mission now. That's all we're doing. The mission is to get the wine gone.
Right.
And when would you like to have that done by?
Say within 2 years.
Okay. So what you would put in your mission statement is, by May 15th, 2021, the wine will be gone. right? And how will you know when you've accomplished the mission? When the wine is gone. And again, we can go back and fine tune things. And this is a critical part of the whole planning process, is to actually know what's to be accomplished separate from everything else. Okay. If you're doing this for the NW exam, are you sitting?
Yeah.
When are you planning to sit the exam?
In like 20 days.
In 20 days. So you could do your. I know it.
Good luck.
I'm gonna need it.
So your actual mission might be not just to sit the exam, but to know you've passed the exam. And so when do you know the timeline after you sit the exam, when they actually do the announcement?
You get your results like first week in September.
In December now?
September.
Oh, September. Okay, got it. So when I passed, the Institute couldn't even find me. Joel Butler had to call me to tell me I passed.
Hey, Tim, I have to leave now. I just want to say thank you for everything. I will watch the rest of this video later today.
Excellent.
And I will definitely schedule a call with you after your trip from Japan, okay?
That'll be great. Yeah, and for anybody wanting to schedule, and just a real quick word about that, anytime up to 4 weeks after today to schedule the call. And very honestly, I've got people I stay in touch with from even 9 years ago when I first started teaching this course with Sonoma State that I still talk with, that I find out how they're doing. I love to hear what people are doing, so stay in touch, and we'll have our call, Daniel. Okay?
Will do. Rachel, good luck to you on your exam.
Great, thank you.
I hope you make. I'm sure you're going to make it, and please share that with us. I don't know why you have to wait till September though. That's a long time.
Well, it's a 4-day exam with a lot of writing, so they have a lot of.
4-day exam with about 100 pages of written theory that have to be reviewed, each question by a panel of 5 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. And how many masters of wine are there in the world?
It's like 370 now, maybe.
370, I think. Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. And
Wow.
and that's since 1953.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
there's
so many Americans in the course now. There's more than half the students are American, so we're the ones that are distorting the ratings.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Okay,
All
bye.
right, buddy. Thanks, Daniel. Talk to you soon. Okay, so let's go back to this. And I want everybody to keep this in mind, not only for this class, but for anything you intend to accomplish. It makes just a fantastic structure for helping to end this jumble of questions and what ifs and contingencies and needs, etc. All right. So you're going to have your wine gone by X period of time, and then we're going to create the vision of what things look like in the future when you've done that. All right. So if we were creating a mission to go to Disney World, what might be our vision of what things look at when we're in Disney World?
When we're there.
Yeah. We're explaining to somebody, we're going on a trip, that this is the dates that we're going, and when we get there, this is what we plan things to look like.
I've never actually been to Disney World, but I imagine we'd be on rides, be eating ice cream.
Eating ice cream, going on rides, exploring things, having, and most of all, having fun, correct? Yeah. And you'd want everybody to be in agreement on that.
Right.
So when you've sold your wine, what's your vision of what the world would look like standing in, I've sold my wine, I've accomplished my mission.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
From my point of view,
Yeah.
it's relief.
Right. My vision is to be relieved, to be to experience a freedom from having this, to be happy.
Yeah.
And these are the things that are in a vision statement. Nobody starts a wine business saying, oh, my mission is to open a winery, have my wines in production, and I want to be overwhelmed with paperwork. I want to be sued for not having the correct permits. I want to, be dealing with pain in the ass customers and drunk visitors.
Right.
That's nobody's vision. But that's where people end up wondering what the hell happened.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. And so this is going to be really instrumental, because when we set the goals, when we start to look at what you're actually trying to sort out, it's not only is the pathway to get to Disney, but to be having fun, to be on the rides, to be eating ice cream and doing all these things. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. So that then becomes your mission statement. Your vision statement. And then using the Master of Wine examination, just to use kind of a different context. It could be a marketing context or whatever, but you've got an educational mission to attain that certification. What does that look like when you've done that?
What do you mean?
So this is visioning. So you're speculating into the future. You're sitting somewhere and you get an email, or you get something in the mail, or a phone call,
mm-hmm.
and it says, on behalf of the Institute of Masters of Wine, we're pleased to present you with your credential. You have successfully passed the examination.
Relief. No, I'd feel happy because I would know I'd have more opportunities ahead.
Yeah, so your vision would be a world of opportunities, speculation about new business,
yeah,
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be sharing that and so on. When it happened to me, I was in Paso Robles in the middle of a divorce. My life was shit, and I was really happy. Now, those other things were not part of that plan, but that's how life just kind of comes and goes. But your vision should give you inspiration of what you really want to be doing.
Right.
And so instead of having a vision of having the winery, having your brand, and all of this dealing with permits and pain in the ass, you want to be doing events. You want your wine out in the world. You see it in restaurants. You're having events at the winery. You're making wines. You're in the vineyards. You're doing the things that you love to be doing. All right. So that hopefully then can inspire you to why we want to go to Disney, why you want to become a master of wine, why you want to sell off the inventory you've got.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is change things up in the goals, and we're going to put ourselves in the future and look back at what we needed to do to get there. All right? And we're going to do this in a reverse process. So let me start with the trip to Disney. I want to go to Disney World with my family. We want to get there by this date. We're at Disney. We're eating ice cream. We're having a blast. We're on the rides. and I'm there now, and I'm looking back. What did I do that morning? What did I need to do that morning to be at Disney World?
Well, I mean, you had to get there.
Yeah, so I had to get there, and am I in a hotel or did I drive directly there? And did I have the proper medication for my lactose intolerance kids so that we could have, or for me, for the ice cream and this and that,
Right.
and so forth. So then if I'm in Disney World today and I decided, you know what, I wanted to stay overnight in Anaheim, then I would have need to book a hotel. So now I'm going to start to put milestones and intermediate goals.
Right.
I better have tickets for everybody.
Yeah.
I need medications and this and that. Need a hotel reservation for that night there, and we need to arrive actually in this point at this time.
Right.
All right. So for you to be standing there holding your Master of Wine certificate, what did you have to do to have that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this for a long time. I mean, I've been tasting wine blind weekly for like over 5 years now with a group of people, you know, so hitting certain markers of being able to know that, you know, when, you know, being able to nail vintages and things like that just through years and years of repeated tasting. I've taken probably 4 semesters of viticulture courses now. I've made wine. You know, I'm just slowly ticking off the things that I'm taking this class because I don't know anything about business.
Well, here's the thing. You're sitting there, you've been notified you are a Master of Wine, you're basking in the glow, you're relieved, you're proud, you're excited, you see new opportunities. What had to happen what's the thing that had to happen before that for that to happen?
Well, I had to take the test.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that goes into so now what we're going to do is we're going to create the roadmap of how we got there, but we're going to do it in reverse to make sure that everything lines up with what to do by when. Okay. So now what we're going to do is start to get our goal. Well, the obvious goal is to take the exam. And what's the date of the exam?
It's the 3rd through the 6th.
Of July?
June
3rd through 6th. You're going to sit the exam. Where are you going to take it?
At the Constellation offices in San Francisco.
And where are you going to stay?
At my house.
Got it. And so that then becomes the next thing on your timeline.
Right.
Okay, great. So now to sit the exam, sort of in a step-by-step thing or process, what do you need to do in preparation by when immediately before sitting the exam?
I mean, immediately before. I mean, get myself there.
Yep. Well, so let's say that you know how you're going to get there. You're going to drive there or take a Uber or something like that. So to know that you're ready for that next step, what would your intermediary goal be? And it would look like something that you feel confident in your theory,
right?
And that you feel confident in your practical examination.
Right.
Okay, great. Now we're going to completely separate those as we go back. And so for you to feel confident and my suggestion is usually that you quit tasting several days or even more before the actual exam.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm also not having dairy for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. So now do you see how that becomes that intermediary goal?
Right.
So what I would do if I was going to Disneyland and I needed to be there by this time, I need to have tickets. So I also need to put somewhere in my timeline, when am I going to purchase the tickets? When am I going to make that commitment? When am I going to book the hotel? And I put that date. I need to have this by when, it's in my calendar, and these are the goals.
Right.
And the milestones along the way. If I'm going to be in Anaheim that night, am I going to be a couple nights in Anaheim, or where am I going to be the day before that? And the day before that? And then I could say, okay, we need to leave on this date, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, as with any plan, I'm also going to want maybe some buffers in there. Because what happens in the event that we're on our way to Disneyland, I'm going to need resources, fill up the car with gas, get snacks and stuff, make sure that we're packed, and all of these kind of things. What would happen if along the way somebody all of a sudden said, we have to go to Hearst Castle? All right, that's not on the plan. But if I've got the plan, now I can deal with the contingency. I can either say it's not going to happen, or that in my plan, you know, we had booked for a couple extra nights beforehand, so we can change the plan and accommodate that or not. Mm-hmm. So with this real clear step-by-step plan, you can now accommodate a deviation to the plan or not, and make that decision. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go back to your wines. You want to sell them by when? That means that they need to have been presented and promoted and so forth. Now, let's look at the goals that you're going to create, because that's also going to be part of this benchmarking and milestone process.
Right.
In the best of all worlds, what would be your financial end game of selling all the wine?
It's just to, like I said, break even. I think that's a very modest goal.
So break even would be the modest goal. How many cases total, roughly? Do you mind sharing?
I mean, some of it's bottled and some of it isn't. So altogether, it's probably around 1,000 cases. So
1,000 cases. So if you could make $10 a case, that could be your reach goal.
Right.
Right? And your contingency would be anything less than that wouldn't be achieving your goals.
Right.
Okay. So in the goals, you start to say, okay, so these are the two possibilities I want to look at a break even or this amount of profitability. Now, if I go back to a general winery plan, the goal could be, all right, you know what? And this is the reality, and this is what so many people are competing against. People who have so much money, they can afford to lose money with their winery.
Mm-hmm.
And they can afford the marketing, and they can afford bribes, and they can afford incentives for salespeople, and they can put their wines in the Napa Valley wine auction and fill up a Ferrari and get that kind of publicity. They can get the wines to Robert Parker and pay the fees for all those kind of things. And so if you can't, what's your plan? So now with your wine, you've got bottled inventory, and you've got known cost of goods of each one, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So then you can break down your goals in, for my bottled inventory, my average cost of good, this many cases is this by that, and that's one part of my goals. The second part of the goals is going to be the unfinished, unbottled goods that I'm guessing you would sell as bulk wine if you could.
No, I would probably still bottle it.
Okay, so that's not part of it. Great. So
Right.
so then you know that part of fulfilling that mission is to get that. So
Bottled, yeah.
so by when then, if you're going to have all this gone in 2 years, or were you a year? I'm sorry.
2 years.
Then by when do you need that bottled, labeled, ready to go? And is it several different products?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, do you want to have that all done simultaneously, and by when?
ASAP. But I know to set a goal probably in the next few months, like 3 months.
And so then in your timeline, go ahead and again, it could be arbitrary. You may decide to go, to Hearst Castle, but set that date to say, I need this done by then.
Right.
And then from that, have you done planning to know what basically your cost of finished goods is going to be?
No, I know I know I need to do that.
So by when?
After my exam?
So exactly.
Yeah.
So do you see how you're starting to put everything in the way this looks now moving forward? We're going to Disney World. We know we have to have reservations, we have to have tickets, we have to have sunscreen, we have to have lactose intolerance medication if there is such a thing, or lactate or whatever. We need to have all these things. And now, standing in this day, we know what we have handled. We know what dates we've set. Those can be modified and changed, but we've got a plan. And so anytime you have something floating in your head, you put it into the timeline and say, this by then.
Right.
So if your wine is bottled, labeled, and ready for sale from the bulk wine, set that date. Then you would have to have the bottling date. You would have to have the labels and everything ordered and ready to go. You would have to have then wherever the wine is stored and the logistics to get, are you going to use a mobile bottling, or is it going to be done at the facility?
Well, controversial, because the people I rent from just purchased their own small bottling unit, but I'm not happy with how much he wants to charge to use it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, but regardless of how it's bottled, it needs to be bottled by a certain time, and then that decision needs to be made. Now you can do SWOT analysis.
Right.
So versus where Daniel was, jumping into SWOT analysis, now you got a SWOT analysis to what the hell are you going to do to get that stuff in the bottle so that it's ready by this date, so that you can start selling it and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're also going to want to put in there is intermediaries. How many cases now do you have? And somewhere between when it's all bottled and 2 years from now, what's sort of the step down so that it'll all be gone by that date?
Right.
And so maybe it's X cases by this date, X cases by that date, and so on.
Right.
And then as part of the $10,000 that you would love to make selling this, what's the contribution of the two products in different statuses? How much of that $10,000 would be generated from these cases? How much from these cases? Okay. And again, by when? And those are in the plan. All right. Now, did you have a question at this point?
Well, you're probably going to say, oh, I'm getting to that. But I guess I'm just thinking about, like, a lot of these seem like internal markers, but I'm looking at it almost from, like, to get away from my personal example, but as like a more external yardstick. So say I got a loan from a bank and I'm going to pay it back, but how do they, like, what is the, from an external point of view, 6 markers of you're on the right track? You know, is it like paying back your loans on your loan on time? Is it, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah,
guess
so you need,
like more specific, like very quantifiable ways to measure.
so you're looking for now possibly getting a loan to help do this. And this is so many businesses. We're looking for investment.
Right.
And we're struggling with, we've got products, we're market ready, we've got a new partner, we've got money that's been invested. Now we need the sort of the seed money, if you will. But we don't want to give away the company.
Right.
So how much do you need, and when do you need it? And then that goes into the calendar. And to get to that point, you're going to have to set up appointments with loan officers. They're going to want certain things, including the plan that we're doing right now. So when you sit down with this officer, you can say, my plan is to turn a $10,000 profit by this point in time, and here's where our specific dates that we'll have the wine ready to go and bottled in this, and that's what the loan's going to enable us to do. And then here's the sales schedule of how many cases by when, so that we can assure you that we'll be able to pay you off. Right. and to do this. So that these are, consider this now that we're leaving from Bend, Oregon, we're going to Disney World. We've got each night planned out where we need to be at the end of each day, how many miles we have to have. We may be open on where we're going to eat and so on and so forth. Probably be best to make reservations at each of those checkpoints. But now we can actually look at the mile markers on the highway, or how many miles, on our GPS to the destination, and we know where we need to be against where we actually are. And that's what the bank's going to want to see. So this process is not just you wrapping your head around this, but it's also being able to provide to an investor, a financer, a partner, or a bank, this is the plan.
Right.
And they want to see the details. They want to know, when's it going to be bottled? How much does that cost? How much are you going to sell? What's your sales plan by date, and so forth? Now, it's really typical to happen. We're on our way to Anaheim. We've decided to go Highway 5 to go down through the Grapevine. We've got our route planned out, and we get to some point and there's a horrible wreck on the Grapevine. Traffic is backed up for miles, and it's going to put us way behind on our plan. At that point in time, then you've got to adjust the goals. You got to adjust the timelines appropriately. But if you don't know where you're supposed to be by when, you don't really know what that's going to do to getting to that destination. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where you can also, you're basically selling this plan, these goals, and the bank is going to be looking, do I trust this person? Do I trust their plan? Have they really thought of all the details? Can they answer the fundamental questions? And if you've got all this lined up and done properly, the answer is yes.
Right.
So it's going to be really a key point. So now you've got that, you need money. You're going to need to be also probably able to demonstrate, are you going to be providing collateral? Are you going to put your home at risk? If you are, do you have anybody else's you know, agreement that you can do that. I mean, if I went to my wife and said, you know, honey, we got the funding for my new business. This is great. And if she says, then, well, did they ask for any collateral? Say, yeah, I put up our house and both of our cars as collateral. She'd shoot me. So I would need agreement for that also. I need to put, when am I going to have that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to handle that? So this then, and then anytime a question comes up in your head, it may not be right yet, but park it somewhere. Park it in the plan at a point of time of what's going to be accomplished at what point. So it's not floating around out there. All right. So does that make sense as the process and how to handle the details from your wine end?
Yeah.
Okay, great. From the master of wine end, then you've got kind of two things that really stand out that need to be done. One's going to be your regimen for the practical, and for those of you who don't understand what that is, it's the blind tasting, and the theory, which is the written essays about wine, about viticulture, enology, quality assurance and quality control, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the written papers. So now, if you're ready for the blind tasting, and how many days do you have to get ready?
Like 2021.
20 or 21. And if we gone through the triple blind tasting process together?
I don't think so.
No, you would know it if we did. Doug Frost, you know Doug Frost?
Yeah.
He credits my coaching, my mentoring with him, as this is how he passed the Master of Wine examination. And you and I can have a call on this, but it's quit tasting. Look at past exams, look at the practical papers, knowing the answer. How would you, if you were able to smell and taste a wine, how would you arrive at a passing paper knowing what the wine is?
Right. Yeah. No, I've already started doing that. That it's a lot more logical than people think. So just going over, making lists of every single wine that's come up. What are, the laterals, but then also how do you craft the perfect answer? Like
right.
knowing that it's Chablis, but like, how do you know it's Chablis, and like practicing just writing that out?
Right. And so you and I can have this conversation and put a structure to that. And so then what you would do is structure some times in these are the milestones along the way that you're going to practice this maybe up until the day before the exam, or if you're like me, my brain needed 2 days to decompress. I needed to stop tasting, stop writing, and as much as possible stop thinking, so that I could go in and see things clearly and unclutter my mind. Then, do you have some more tastings coming up that you're going to be attending, or?
Yeah, just 2 more.
Okay, put those in, and also put in then what do you want at that milestone. A milestone is a mini mission, if you will. So actually create something. We'll talk about this also. What do you intend to accomplish the tasting before the final tasting? And the one before that.
Yeah.
So set your intermediary points.
Right.
Okay. So so now you've got 2 things to work on. One is the practical. I'm sorry. The 2 parts of the practical you're going to work on are the 2 tastings you're going to do, and then the practice papers that you're going to do without wine. We called it triple blind because there is no wine. And we'll go over a structure for that. All right. Once you write it down and have something to refer to, you will be amazed at how uncluttered your head becomes about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anything else you need to accomplish, any other goals in the blind tasting, in the practical papers that you need to accomplish before the exam?
I mean, I'm pretty good with timing, but just, my main goal for the next 2 weeks is to make sure that I 100% finish the paper when the timer goes off.
Great. And so that now becomes part of the 2 blind tasting things. You intend to do these on time,
right,
in the time allotted, and what we're going to talk about with a clear structure of every time how you're going to address that paper. That's what I'm committed to helping you with. Okay?
Right.
And there you go. And then you do those things at the appointed time. If something comes up and you have to move it, then move it. But it's called a structure for fulfillment of your practical papers, what to do by when, so that you can achieve the results that you've set for yourself, the mission. Right. Okay. Let's go to theory. And where do you think your weaknesses are? What do you need to do to be fully prepared for your theory papers?
I mean, to be honest, this paper is still, I feel I'm not going to pass. It's the business one I'm really weak on. Like, I just don't, this is what I'm trying to wrap my head around is like, the assignments I've submitted are kind of frightening when because I feel like they're not asking nebulous answers. And so, like I told you, I submitted an essay on like, how do you know a wine brand is strong? And they were like, no, we're actually asking you like quantifiably, how is it strong? And I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, so let's go with that, and then sort of mash that up with your wines.
Yeah.
Okay. So put yourself in the position. You're a brand manager, a winery owner,
right.
Sales and marketing VP, and you're preparing to do a report to the president or the CEO or your board of investors or your wife or husband. All right, whatever it is. And the purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate that your brand is doing well.
Right.
What would they want to know that you could provide that would demonstrate that?
Well, I mean, when I wrote the assignment, I focused on things like, number of placements in the market, like a healthy mix, that we don't have our eggs in one basket. And
so a recommendation, don't put this how I would have or what I did. Here's what I would demonstrate. Let's see if there's any holes. So one would be placements.
Right.
So that one of the measures of brand success is achieving placement at points of sale.
Right.
Is that a way to articulate that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. And give me another one.
I see this as when like I just don't know who measures these, but things like
don't go there.
Okay.
Just tell me what it is.
Well, like customer satisfaction with the product.
So customer satisfaction, so CRM kind of thing. Customer relationship management.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And which customer?
The people buying the wine.
All right. And are you selling it direct to them? Or are you going through distributors or intermediaries?
It wasn't specified.
I know it.
Yeah.
That's why they're asking it this way.
Right. Well, I mean, it depends on if you're selling direct, then like what we talked about earlier, how many people in the wine club you're retaining year to year.
So again, just to not get into any details yet. So there's customer relationship management of the consumer.
Right.
And how it gets there and where that point, there's a lot of things to think about. Where else can brand strength be measured through customer relationship management? And think in supply chain order. If it's to the consumer, where else could you have a measure of customer satisfaction with your brand?
Well, if you're selling through a wholesaler, like
Right.
repeating orders through your wholesaler.
Yep. And then, but you also mentioned another intermediary, and I'll just prompt this for speed: wine club,
Right.
tasting room,
Well, direct to account. So.
and any direct to account, which actually is a subset of accounts.
Right.
Okay.
But I would
So
look at things
accounts.
like if I was selling direct to account, like how many by the glass placements do I have versus bottles?
Well, that would be to any account. That would be to a bar. That would be to a restaurant. That would be to a direct to account or through the distributor. And then what I would say is to put these in either ascending or a descending order along the supply chain. And this is where I'm going to kind of leave everybody to think about this, and you and I are going to pick this up.
Okay.
And that is, learn to think about the wine business as a series of sales and transactions that actually start with a vineyard business and transaction. And how do you assess the value of a vineyard and its crop? How do you justify the millions of dollars spent by individuals or companies for vineyard property that would never, ever turn a profit given the selling price? What would their motives be? What is their goal? What are their missions? All right. So then learn to think in your head back through the supply chain. What would this decision have to do up and down the supply chain? So now you can say, okay, to measure a strength of a brand, you would want to look at points of sale. You would, in placements, all right, so that's one thing that you can quantify. You can look at customer relationship management, and sometimes you can get that data, sometimes you can't. You would also want to look at total sales volumes, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And total sales versus your plan is really the measurement you want. What was your forecast and how well did you do against that goal, plus or minus? You mentioned then also PR and clippings and stuff like that. And
Right.
you can actually go do Google metrics, you can do searches and whatever. Right. So you've got press, etc., from, let's say, standard media, and there are ways to actually get Facebook and Twitter and so forth. Sometimes it's expensive, sometimes it's hard to get, but
Right.
you would want to find every mention, every positive article, etc.
Right. And
right?
so my friend who used to work for Kraft, she was saying, like, for social media, there's 3 tiers of engagement. The first one is just getting someone to look at your social media. The second tier is getting them to follow. And then the third tier is the engagement of getting them to comment.
Exactly. Now, and that would be perfect under the structure of this. And so it's eyeballs, which means somebody's looked at it. And
right.
those are measurable, and those can be done and set up with
right.
alerts and metrics right. on all sorts of platforms. Then there's actual click-throughs, and whether it's an email blast or campaign and so forth. And then there's finally the conversion. Did they buy anything?
Right.
And then the final step of that, did they make a repeat purchase, or did they stay as a customer? So now you've got that whole section of your paper all ready to go and written.
Right.
All right, next.
What about, like, comparing yourself to, like, other brands that are very similar?
So that's in the business plan because that's your competitive analysis.
Right. So if I find people that are about my same case size doing the same thing.
Right. And the metrics of measurement would be you versus competition.
Right.
Yeah. So again, these are all the things that go into the business plan that would all go into your roadmap, your timelines, et cetera, et cetera. And so that now you can write this paper, and we'd already discussed where you'd really gotten into a hole just simply by how you define brand.
Right.
Right. And because of that hole, it eliminated a lot of possibilities of this,
right,
of what you're going to do, how you're going to measure it.
Right.
Great. All right. So I'm going to pull the plug on this session. I want to make sure everybody knows that you've got 5 weeks from today to turn in your final projects. That would be your original cost of goods analysis, and the second part that can be submitted now up to 5 weeks would be the business plan outline, and the second financial calculator. It could be either the cost of goods or the blending calculator. And anybody has any individual questions, just give me a holler. And anything for you, Rachel, to sort of wrap this up, but let's have a call before the end of this
Okay.
week.
Yeah. So maybe not next week, but the week after.
Got it. And put that in your plan.
Okay. Great.
And we might want to have a quick conversation about the triple blind tasting in that process.
Okay.
You can do that anytime, anywhere, and it's
Right.
really helpful. Okay, everybody.
All right.
All right. And thank you all so much, and good luck. Let me know if you've got any questions. Schedule a call when you need. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.